Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. So the Education Department in Limpopo is planning to now lift the food sales ban in schools, but with certain conditions. Schools and vendors must follow these rules, we're told, by the 11th of November. That's just about in 3 days. The goal here is to ensure that the food that's sold at schools is healthy and safe. And we know why this is a pressing issue, of course, given the incidents of suspected food contamination that we've seen throughout the country. But let's make sense of the situation specifically in Limpopo, bring in the acting HOD, Martin Mashaba, who joins us now via our video link. Sir, thanks very much indeed for your time and welcome to the SABC News Channel. Perhaps a clarity-seeking question as a start. What exactly is contained in the circular? Because we've seen, for example, some people suggesting that only certain food items have been banned, at least insofar as the sale outside schools is concerned.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me indicate that there are two issues that we are dealing with and that I think the viewers and the public should be aware of. There is the selling of food within the schools and there is the selling of food outside of the schools. The selling of food within the schools is a responsibility of the Department of Education, which means those who are selling within our schools are supposed to adhere to our rules and they are supposed to adhere to the directives that we give them. But those who sell outside the schools, even though they are selling to our learners, they have to comply with municipal rules and regulations. Now, as you recall, when we first issued the circular to suspend the selling, the circular itself indicated that it was going to be affecting those who are selling within the schools and those who are selling outside of the schools. Now, subsequent to that, we then had a meeting of the different stakeholders, that is those who are also involved with the sales of food outside the schools, and also our executive council in the province met to consider this matter, and they gave directives that then led to the circular that has now been issued.
Right.
Now, the circular that has now been issued, which I think is the point of what you were asking, the circular that has been issued is aimed at giving direction to those who are selling within the school. And it's saying there that the suspension is conditional to them having a contract with the school governing body, and that contract will be able to be used to check if they are complying with all health and safety issues with regards to the handling of foodstuff and the storing thereof and all health-related issues. And then the circular also then says they need to then keep a record of the places where they bought this food from, so that if something happens as a department, and in particular the school, we should be able to trace where these people have bought this foodstuff from. And maybe let me hasten to say that this is actually not a new thing. It has always been there. It's just a matter that we want to reinforce it, because all those who are selling within schools, who are running our tuck shops, they know they have to have this contract and that there are certain health conditions that they need to comply to. So that is basically what is going to be happening.
All right. I suppose that's expected. I think that circular speaks of a service level agreement and they must possess a certificate of acceptability. Those are people who are selling inside the school. But I'm still unclear about what happens to those outside the school's boundaries.
Yes. You recall we spoke about the fact that we have had meetings with other stakeholders. Now, the other stakeholders we're talking about are those who are responsible for the sales of whatever foodstuff to our learners, but outside of the school yard. And in this regard, the most important stakeholders are the municipalities and our Department of Economic Development and Tourism. These are the ones who regulate the selling of food and the selling of the sales of foodstuff outside of the school yard. So, from their side as stakeholders, they have got a program which will, amongst others, include going to the spaza shops around the schools and the our mamas who are selling just outside the school, to educate them on what it is that they need to comply with. And that program is has already started, and it will be rolled out over the next few days, just so that they understand what it is that they need to comply with. So in a summarized way, other stakeholders, municipalities, Department of Economic Development and Tourism, and to some extent also the security cluster, they are going to be engaging those who are selling outside the schoolyard just to advise them on what it is that they need to do to ensure that they comply.
All right. Of course, the spirit in which all of this is being done is to ensure that children are safe. And I think I want to be very emphatic that everybody is on board with that, including, I imagine, some of these hawkers, vendors, and entrepreneurs. But some of the concerns that they've raised, Acting HOD, is the fact that there was simply no notice that something like this would be more strictly enforced, as you put it. I mean, the one lady we spoke to yesterday said just the day before, she had just restocked on her perishable items. And because this is the only source of income, she doesn't know what to do with that anymore.
Yes. No, indeed. When we took that decision, and when I say we, I mean the Executive Council, because this went through the Executive Council. When that decision was taken, it was not taken lightly. And you will appreciate that with cases like this, you have to weigh which one is the better devil, because indeed, if we had not done anything and a learner, another child was to die, then we would have been found wanting to say, but you were aware that things are happening and you just did nothing. So that is why we had to take a very drastic step to ensure that we put a pause. And I think even in our communication, we did indicate that this was not a blanket ban, but it was just a pause so that we are able to investigate and see what is it that we are dealing with. And because of that, we believe that the time that we took was not unreasonably long. I think we do appreciate that there might have been indeed some of our vendors who really suffered, but we believe that it was necessary and it had to be done. And as indicated, for now, we believe that they are free to continue to sell. However, as the circular says, we expect that by Monday, next week Monday, all would have been now compliant, so that we do not run into these challenges again. But yes, we do appreciate that it was a difficult decision that we had to take. But just to emphasize, for us, the paramount thing was to protect the lives and the health of our learners.
Sure.
It's really indeed unfortunate that it had these other consequences that are not so good.
Fair enough. And I'm sure you'll agree. I mean, as you try to solve one crisis, you don't want to create another, right? And I hear what you're saying about there being conditions until Monday. But again, that's for the vendors who are operating inside the school premises. What are the timelines then for some of those who are operating outside, who too sometimes rely on this form of business as their sole benefit, their sole income?
Yes, I think the joke, there is a joint operating committee that has been set up that is now going to be looking at what is happening outside. As you'll appreciate, the task is going to be quite vast because it's not just about the grannies who are selling just outside the schoolyard, but it's also about the spaza shops, which our learners have access to. So the committee is going to sit, and I believe that in no time at all, they will issue a statement and a guideline as to what needs to be done and what the sellers should comply with. But the appreciation of taking a decision very quickly is there, and I think we all appreciate it. But safe to say for now that the job will issue a statement in this regard to guide us to what is going to happen going forward.
All right. Martin Mashaba, that's the time we have this morning. Thanks very much for speaking to us. And hopefully we're able to find some kind of middle ground sooner than later, because as I think you've rightly outlined for us, there are a few things to be considered with decisions like this. Martin Mashaba is the Acting HOD for the Limpopo Education Department. Once again, thanks very much indeed.